Law enforcement and government agencies struggle with parking citations, often because no one will pay them. Boots or other devices are costly, and they invite confrontation when implied and later removed by enforcing employees. With Tire Tag, you can avoid many hurdles and ultimately promote public safety and revenue collection. To learn more, visit tiretag.com. Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Blue Grit Radio. This is your host, Eric, and today I'm going to be covering some quotes and concepts from one of my oldest favorite heroes. This is going way back to my childhood, but it is Bruce Lee, the incomparable, the one and only legendary dragon. Bruce Lee. As a kid growing up, Asian American kid, Chinese American, I know a lot of people have reflected in a similar background that we didn't have a whole lot of role models that, kind of look like us. And that's the thing for a lot of people. Very different times today. So that's pretty exciting for people of all walks and backgrounds. But for me, like a lot of kids I grew up with, in our, kind of Asian community when I was younger, it's just kind of like kung fu movies and all that. And so just in the same ways that many of my closest friends and colleagues now grew up like loving those 80s and 90s movies with the greats like Arnold, Sylvester, Chuck, Jean-Claude, right? Like Bruce Lee was my dude. So as I've gotten older, I have come to appreciate so much of his philosophy and his mindset. A lot of these quotes you may have heard verbatim, but also in concept. And so there's so much principle that he brings into this holistic way that we look at things, or we can look at things. Certainly a lot of things that I ascribe to, they make sense when I review and revisit and learn more about Bruce Lee in my adulthood now or my later years. And having revisited it more lately, it just strikes a different way. And I love how even when they're talking about the rise of MMA, the UFC days that I was very much a fan of for many, many years, very avidly following that, a lot of credit was given to Bruce Lee because with Jeet Kune Do, his form of martial art, he really rocked the boat. He was a total disruptor in the space because it wasn't about this school or this style being the best as it was traditionally. Each school trying to rival each other or challenge each other, and the students all trying to throw down to rep their brand, rep their tribe. He was just more like, hey, let's just cut through the BS. Let's combine things, and we'll get into that as far as some of these concepts and quotes. Without further delay, number 1, be like water. Right? So be like water, it means to be flexible. And the full quote he talks about, when water takes the shape of whatever it goes into, right? It goes into a cup, it becomes the cup. It goes into a vase, it becomes a vase. Water has essentially no form / all forms. And so there's so much to be said for how we can apply this to life. It goes right in line with philosophies that a lot of our first responder culture really resonate with, and that is Stoicism, right? Like Greek Stoics, that really ascribe to focusing on your locus of control and not engaging your emotions on things you cannot control. So to be like water is to be able to flow, right? He says, empty your mind, be formless, shapeless like water. So it can flow, it can crash. A bunch of water can absolutely be a force to be reckoned with. It can be absolutely devastating, but it can also be super serene and rejuvenating. And so recognizing kind of that Taoist principles as well is like, if we are able to be flexible, adaptable, that goes right in line with being resilient in the career, right? Like keeping our emotions in check, centering ourselves, focusing on like a peaceful, that is what being gritty is all about, right? Being adaptable to the shifts and the change that's always going to come. All right, number 2, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add to what is uniquely your own. All right, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add to what is uniquely your own. So this is another extremely famous one. It really draws upon what I was just talking about with MMA and Jeet Kune Do, but really just build your own system, your own practices. I love learning. I love getting ideas from different people. A classic model in policing is the fact that most people have several field trainers, or patrol trainers, right? So PTOs, FTOs, or whatever model is out there. It's all generally adaptive of the fact that you're going to have a lot of trainers and you're going to have a lot of supervisors. And hopefully you can pick up good things from each one. Sometimes, unfortunately, you pick up things that you don't want to do and you don't want to replicate, but that's extremely useful too. So, as a new person in anything, it can be really helpful to model or mimic those around you. And that is a step in development. The next step is blending what works for you, right? So, it's about finding your authenticity and your true self, like your true leadership style and how you're doing whatever task or role. So, if that's policing, you are going to be the best cop you can be when you are the best version of yourself. And that may include taking lessons from others and taking skills and ideas from others, but absolutely not trying to be someone else, not trying to be someone you aren't. So the lesson there is to build your system from experiences, not to purely imitate. Number 3, knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. Okay, this goes to themes that have come up a lot on the show lately. It's about action, not just what we say or what we intend, but like what we actually do. It's more important what I do than what I say, right? And I know that there might be some irony and some jokes in there being a podcast host and talking a lot, but talking and verbalizing things is a way that I really do enjoy to learn. I do love having these kind of philosophical or conceptual deep dives with guys and gals I work with. I love joining, obviously, and being joined with people here on the show. It's just such a different way to learn and engage my brain and expand, I suppose, an open-mindedness that I'm always striving for. And I venture to guess that majority of you are always striving for being a part of this and sharing this type of stuff out. But yeah, to go back, just to know isn't enough. Like we need to apply. And so it makes me think of the difference between, knowledge and intelligence, I think it said. So you can know whatever you know, but if you don't actually use it or know how to use it, like what good is it? It's just information. I think that's what it was. The difference between information and intelligence, right? Information is data, intelligence is putting it into like valuable use. So action. We're all about action. Let's get after it. Number 4, do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. I don't think there's that much more that needs to be said here. We talk about, being uncomfortable or getting uncomfortable and how that is the forge for growth, or as it said, and I love this. So I've said recently, like some folks are just like looking and forecasting the 10, 20, 30 years until retirement. And then life will be grand. And then I'll have all the things I want. And then I'll do all the things I want. Like, I don't want to live that way, like, straight up. I want to live the way I want to live now. And retirement's going to be awesome too. It's going to be a different chapter. I really don't see ever just like kicking back like all day long, every day of every week. Like, that's not going to be me. There's going to be some physical endeavors, there's going to be some mental endeavors, there's going to be some concept of work, whether it's volunteering, whether it's continuing to create in forms like this and find ways to be purposeful and positive. There's no just like kicking back. To just be stagnant, that's where we actually decline significantly. And not to be dark, but that is really where people lose purpose, they lose passion, and they do actually expire. Like people don't stick around if they don't have a reason to. And that's just a fact of life. So don't want the easy life. We want challenge. We want adversity. That's how we grow. That's how we accomplish amazing things. Number 5, to hell with circumstances. I create opportunities. I love this personal agency, this ownership. It goes to mindset. It's a huge tenet of get gritty. The curriculum I deliver, or the online content that may or may not be almost done. I know I've been saying that for a little while, but other projects, other priorities, but it's chugging along at the time of this recording. But it all comes down to mindset. Victor or victim, choice or chore, challenge or opportunity. That is entirely up to us. That is entirely up to me. In your life, it is entirely up to you. Which do you choose? The same exact thing. You can be a victor or you can be a victim. The same exact challenge. You can make the choice to do something about it. You can see it as a chore, something that is happening to you, right? So do you happen to life or does life happen to you? And what life do you want? What do you want to carve out? Number 6, it's not the daily increase, but the daily decrease. Hack away at the unessential. I love this. I think as much as my super active mind, just, kind of being in my head through most of my life, and it can be a superpower and it can also be a super curse. But less is more, right? Simplicity, there's such a beauty in it. And I think that's where I really appreciate. You can see a lot of the kind of Taoist roots in his way of thinking, his own personal philosophy. He did study philosophy at none other than the University of Washington. So shout out to philosophy and University of Washington. I did not study philosophy, but I do find it absolutely fascinating, and I've always have. So going back to this, in our culture, in our day-to-day, especially in the high drive, kind of first responder types, or those of you listening in because you are just self-development focused and you're grinders and you are the 2-a-day types, or you're the, a million things going on at one time, jugglers. It's really hard. It's really hard, like societally, culturally, to power it down. And this is me speaking to myself at the same time as you. It's something that I've been in taking on that challenge and happy at the progress I'm making, I suppose. But again, it goes like that less is more. Sometimes just to do more, you realize that you're doing less effectively, right? You can't maintain that potency and bandwidth with every single little thing as you increase more and more things. And so it is this concept that I love, which is to prune away the stuff, right? The excess. Like focus on what's really important. It's that WIN acronym. What's important now? So all these things are very tangential. They're very connected. It goes back to one of the earlier quotes where, absorb what's helpful, discard what's not, right? So let's think about what we can prune away. And when we have such limited time and very busy days and lives, it's not just about adding another wellness practice. It's not just about adding this and adding this and adding that. What can we remove? Like what is not serving us? I mean, I do build content, so I'm on my phone and devices a ton. But it's pretty sickening. It's pretty sickening and saddening to see, lately, like my daily phone updates. It's like, oh, 3.5, 4 hours. I'm like, oh my God, like 3.5, 4 hours on my phone. That stuff adds up. And so for those that say that they don't have time to work out on a busy shift, I would challenge and ask you, are you sure? I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I'm going to ask you, are you sure? And anytime that you or we say we don't have time for something, let's see if we feel like, getting that gut check, that real talk, and look up our screen time. And it probably doesn't take much more than that to recognize the opportunity there. Number 7 is going to be our last quote, our last concept from good old Bruce today. A goal is not always meant to be reached. It often serves simply as something to aim at. What do we mean by that? All right, let's revisit that again. A goal is not always meant to be reached. It often serves simply as something to aim at. Do we want to get to the top of the mountain? Is that what we're going for? Or do we want to keep climbing? And it's not to say like don't enjoy the wins. This reminds me of a conversation I've shared on this podcast, an episode I did with the gentlemen at the collective, Sean and Chance. But we were talking about Sisyphus, right? So Greek mythology, Sisyphus was punished by the gods and he was condemned to a fate of continuing to roll a boulder up a mountain. And just when he's either, near the top or at the top, the day's over, he wakes up, he's back at the bottom with this boulder just staring him down. He's got to push that thing back up. And we went down all these mental rabbit holes, of course, in a way that can only probably happen on the collective in a very fantastic way. But to say that, are we really trying to get and be at the top of that mountain? Or is the pleasure, is the reward, the grind itself? And again, kind of like I was talking about never really retiring, like never being done, like kicking back, just existing in this kickbackness. Like I don't want that. I don't want that for me, certainly. And you do what you want, but I venture to guess that no one really wants that. I shouldn't say no one wants that. Plenty of people want that, but I don't want that. So, are we going to actually keep grinding? It makes me think about how there are statistics on depression rates after like achieving the thing. And sometimes it's a gold medalist in the Olympics. They get there and then they lose that purpose. It's something they've been working for not just like 4 years, maybe their whole life, essentially. And they get that gold medal moment. And then what? Where is there to go or grow from there? And depression is a thing, right? Depression after winning the Super Bowl, or depression after a successful athletic career and then getting sidelined, like literally sidelined, a career-ending injury. because that's all you had. A similar thing is, these CEOs of startups, like they're moving and grooving, they're grinding, they're growing, they're innovating, they're making waves, like big splashes in the tech industry. They sell and they make their fortune, and then they're at a loss, right? And I've seen a story like that recently, and it's not dissimilar from a lot of stories I've seen over the years. They're at an absolute loss. And oftentimes they can find something else to build, right? Like time to start the next company. But it is that thing, right? It is that loss of purpose and desire. And so goals are fantastic, but we got to make sure that there's these bigger goals that are somewhat away from the SMART model, right? Like that maybe they're not specific measurable. Maybe they can never be obtained. And that goes to mission and values, writing your mission statement, writing your own personal values down, or your constitution. I have elements in there, which is to be the best and serve in ways in whatever role or circles I'm in, reflective of my values. And that's elusive. It's subjective. It's not measurable. It's not quite tangible sometimes, which is why I think it's so valuable, why it's so significant at times. So with all that, I truly invite you to consider these different tenets for your own life. What would Bruce Lee do? WWBLD. What can we learn from these concepts, these examples, these philosophies, and how can we use them to uplevel ourselves, our teams, our community? So thank you for joining me on this blend of Bruce Lee homage, a little bit of nostalgia for me thinking about watching those movies growing up, his movies and films, and then a lot of reading that I've been doing about him more recently. And I would be remiss if I did not mention when I named my canine Kato, it is, for Bruce Lee fans out there, it is and was an homage to Bruce Lee because Kato was the character he played on the Green Hornet, which was one of his early breakout moments into the Hollywood scene. So he was the Green Hornet, his chauffeur, and although a subservient role, certainly it wasn't anything. Most writers or commentators, I believe, have recognized it wasn't anything like Tonto to the Lone Ranger per se. But the homage there for me was not just about Bruce Lee, but the fact that Kato was the one out there handling stuff. He'd be busting out his kung fu. He wasn't just the driver. He would throw down in really impressive ways. And so it was a little bit of me kind of playing with that concept for me and my canine because I was the driver and he was the one that was going out there throwing down. And I got a big old smile on my face thinking about that goofy furball that accompanied me on so many missions and journeys in the career, so many close calls. I joked about how he had 9 lives, and eventually the 9th one came. And man, I miss that dog, but I'm so grateful for the times we had together and to have gotten through all the things we got through. And I'm taking a little side venture quest here. I'm going to return back to Bruce Lee and invite you all to appreciate the philosophies of those you look up to and the philosophies of Bruce Lee, whether he is someone that you were aware of and inspired by in some way, or whether this was all totally new to you. And so, as always, I love your feedback. I love the questions, the thoughts, the motivation, the support, the shares, the likes, the reviews, all that good stuff. Again, subscribe if you haven't to download, share it out. It helps the show go and grow. And also, the free newsletter at bluegritwellness.com, and you can get exclusive content there. It is free. It's not this long-winded thing. You can generally just kind of move around the different sections, like gritty thoughts in the wellness section. That usually only goes there, actually, in its full form on the newsletter. With that, stay safe, stay sharp, stay engaged, stay purposeful, and stay gritty. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.